Hello everybody, Ni hao, and welcome to our first episode of China, Economy and Society. Today we start our first series of documentaries and we talk about Chinese rural economy. Because in order to understand the Chinese economic development model and the business opportunity that China offers, we need first to understand how the rural economy operates. And this is true no matter if your business activity is related to manufacturing electronic products, textile, or any other sector. China economy is a complex and interrelated ecosystem, and the beginning is in the countryside. China's future growth relies largely on the migration flow of farmers that move from the countryside to the cities. This provides an input to economic growth. And this is quite natural. Everyone seeks a better life, higher salaries, better living conditions, and access to more services. China has been very successful in adopting this growth model over the last 30 years, since the opening up and reform policies introduced in 1978 by Deng Xiaoping. This has worked until now. But what about the future? Today, GDP forecast relies largely on the assumption that this flow of migrants will continue for the next 2 decades, and about 12 million people per year are expected to move from the countryside to the cities. However, this is what the farmers themselves think. Let's hear them.
不愿意。
俺这城市呢不要了。
农村好。
我不离开了，我要到农村了。农村的空气好些。
一路要归根吧，肯定要早晚也要回农村了。
So, is the general belief that such migration flow is going to be guaranteed in the future too optimistic? Does China economic growth face challenges? To answer these questions, we travel to Guizhou, in the southwest of China. Guizhou is the province with the lowest GDP per capita of $2,200 per year, compared to that of Shanghai, that reaches more than $10,000 per year. Before 1978, no matter how high farmers' production yield was, their income was capped, and therefore there was no incentive to work harder to produce more. Then Deng Xiaoping introduced sweeping reforms that allowed farmers to retain any additional output that could be sold for extra income. One does not have to have a Nobel Prize to understand that this completely changed the dynamics of production. One of the most important results of these reforms was the dramatic increase in farmers' income. This graph shows the evolution of both the rural and urban personal income from 1978 until today. Back in 1978, the average income for a rural resident was only 130 renminbi. Today it has reached 7,000 renminbi, an increase of more than 50 times. At the same time, urban citizen income also increased from 340 renminbi back in 1978 to more than 22,000 today. I like to divide this 30 years period since reforms into 3 stages. During the first decade, the urban to rural income ratio decreased significantly, indicating that the early beneficiaries of reforms were indeed farmers. I call this the Deng Xiaoping area, who was himself originally from a rural province of Sichuan. Then, from 1990 to 2004, economic development shifted in favor of urban development, in particular coastal cities. This is the period where Jiang Zemin was a preeminent figure. He himself was a former mayor of Shanghai. Finally, in the last decade, under the leadership of Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao, which introduced the concept of harmonious society, the urban to rural income ratio remained pretty much stable. Therefore, if you want to forecast the evolution of this ratio, you simply need to look at the background and the place of origin of the current leadership. Despite the growing income disparity, there has been an exceptional improvement in the living condition. 30 years of reforms have lifted 400 million out of poverty. This is an unprecedented achievement in the history of mankind. No matter what your views are about the Chinese system, they have achieved something that no one else has ever done before. Agriculture remains a very important sector of the economy, contributing about 12% of the GDP and employing about 25% of the total population, or 300 million people. Naturally, climate and geography determines which product is cultivated in which areas. For example, rice is mostly grown in the southern western part of China, where a mild and wet climate favors sometimes 2 and even 3 harvests per year. Corn, wheat, soya beans are normally grown in the northeastern part of China. Unlike Western countries, China rural residents face various challenges, such as access to credit, land property rights, and the hukou system, which is the registration system adopted in China that basically separates a citizen into rural and urban citizen.
钱多少个月了嘞？
好
3000个月了吗？
很少的，就是种了自己吃的那些。
一天要自己1300左右。
这一年收入有18000块钱。
我们一年的收入有10000块钱。
这里的生活真的很好，
农村肯定空气好一点。
这可以的发展，相当的很好。
我认为在农村生活很不容易。
不容易。
我对我的经济情况不太满意，自己做一点小生意啊什么的，在农村就是这样。
开心的事情里面就是一天呢，希望生意好一点呗，就开心了嘛。
想到城市来赚点钱，买房子吧。
我的梦想就是走出去，以后有自己的事业，然后让家里面的人都幸福。
The economic condition in the rural areas is not, in my view, as dire as it appears. Yes, average income is only 1/3 of those living in the cities, but that's not the whole story. The cost of living in the rural areas is only a fraction of that in the cities. Farmers have land, which represents a secure and pretty much stable source of income. Housing is free. Food is almost guaranteed by their own land or that of the neighbors. Furthermore, even if working in the fields can be tiring, over the course of the year, only a few weeks are actually spent toiling in the fields, during harvesting and seeding time. The rest of the time is spent relaxing, enjoy the company of family and friends. Furthermore, during those periods, if they wish, they could also do part-time jobs in local shops or other activities related to the agriculture, which would further increase their income. So we know the farmer's income is very low, about $1,200 per year. But we also know that a large part of that comes from other activities, such as part-time jobs or remittance from family members who move to the cities. So that the actual income coming from pure rural activities is only $500 per year. Working as a farmer is not a very lucrative activity. So what can they do to increase their income? A few options. They can buy better fertilizer, invest in agricultural machinery, or move up the value chain. Instead of growing rice, move up to grow peppers or even animal husbandry. But where do they find the funds to invest? Can microcredit be the answer to that? Let's see. Well, I hope you have enjoyed it so far, and we invite you to follow us on our next show. Thank you very much, and goodbye. 再见。